Welcome, everyone. My name is Rahul Abhyankar. I am Director of Programs at the Institute of Product Leadership, and my pleasure to welcome all of you to this Product Leaders webinar. We've been having these Product Leaders webinars for a little over 2 years now, and we take the opportunity to invite senior leaders and executives from around the world to share their insights and experience on a variety of topics. Today's topic is very interesting. Uh, what do we need to know about managing APIs and how do we think about APIs as a product? And it's my pleasure to host Andrea Zulian and Amancio Bouza from Europe on this webinar today. I'll introduce them in a little bit, but just a quick background about the Institute. Over the last 6 years, we've had the opportunity to work with a number of product leaders in many companies. We conduct programs in product management, product marketing, leadership, and data science. And we've had the opportunity to work with many companies, as you see here, ADP, Cisco, Microsoft, VMware, across India, United States, Europe, as well as Southeast Asia. And we also conduct programs on university campuses. In India, we have the Executive MBA in Product Leadership, which is the first of its kind MBA in product leadership in the world. So do check out some of the programs on our website. A little information about the IPL School of Data Science. Very specific programs in data science, all the way from workshops to a postgraduate diploma. And the curriculum and the program has been shaped by a lot of industry input uh, with senior data science leaders from India as well as from Silicon Valley. So do take a look at the programs on the website there. We have a very active LinkedIn group. So I hope all of you have a chance to go to LinkedIn after the webinar. We'll share this link in the chat window so you can take a look at it and be part of the LinkedIn group. Love to interact with other product leaders and learn from each other. We also have a very active blog, and we frequently have executive guest posts on the blog. So please do take a look at the resources that the Institute makes available for the community and the ecosystem at large. Uh, Coming over to today's topic, managing APIs and what do we need to be able to do that. Um, we have, for one lucky attendee, a copy of the book API Product Management by Andrea Zulian and Amancio Bouza. Will announce the lucky winner towards the end of the webinar. Please do post your questions for our speakers in the Q&A, the questions panel that you see in GoToWebinar. Uh, we also love to see you tweet any takeaways and any key learnings from our speakers today, the hashtag prod events, and mention at prod leader. So without further ado, it's my great pleasure to welcome and introduce Andrea Zulian and Amancio Bouza to this webinar today to talk about APIs and what do we need to do to manage APIs and compelling value propositions. Andrea is a senior product manager at Swisscom. Swisscom is a leading telecommunications company in Europe. He is an agile coach, a digital transformation consultant, and an entrepreneur. And he specializes in applying lean methodologies to help companies succeed in their digital transformation and digital journey. And he's launched multiple digital products and services applying the API product management methodology. So we'll look forward to hearing from you, Andrea, about your experience in applying this methodology to different products and services. And our guest speaker is Amancio Bouza, PhD. He's a principal innovation consultant. He is someone with a unique and diverse set of experiences as a startup entrepreneur, product manager, consultant, scientist. He's also a Lego creator, magician, and a cardist. And I think that means that you do a lot of card tricks, Amancio. So he helped establish the APIs products for the digital economy with some novel concepts around how do we look at APIs and how do we create compelling value propositions using APIs. And so look forward to hearing from you both. And my pleasure to welcome you, and over to you.
So hello everybody, and thank you, Raul. The pleasure is on my side. This is Amancio, and next to me is Andrea.
Hi everybody.
So do you hear us? Yeah, I see my screen.
Yes, we can.
All right. So let's start. So we're really happy to talk about APIs, and especially to present you 5 things every product leader needs to know about API. And yeah, let's start with the first one. And let's start with why. Why do we even care about APIs and talk today? So the thing is that the world's economy has changed, and or let's rephrase it, it has rather been extended. So we have the traditional economy, countries who are doing trade, but since let's say 25 or 30 years, we have the internet, and with that, the digital economy has been created or established. That means that everything is interconnected with each other. Everything is communicating with each other and depending on each other. And for the digital economy, if you don't know the term, it's also known as the internet economy, the new business economy, and the web economy. And today it's really, you can't really think our world without it. And a lot of really big companies have been created on top of the digital economy. You know them as Google, for instance, Amazon, Facebook, Alibaba, WeChat. So these are or became really huge companies, really being cloud first driven, creating a platform for their business models, and so on and so forth. And recently, in recent years, there are really new emerging ecosystems like fintech. Maybe you heard about that. These are startups which are disrupting the whole financial service industry at the moment. And here you see some sort of a landscape of fintech companies who are also cloud-driven, who use APIs to really disrupt the financial services. So, for instance, on the top left, you have robo-advisors who help people to make better investments. You have blockchain, bitcoins. For instance, Ripple is doing interbank transactions. You can buy bitcoins and so forth. You have insurtech, you have regtech, digital banks, which try to compete against traditional banks to be more lean and more closer to the people themselves. You have alternative finances. For instance, Kickstart is, for instance, kind of a crowdsourced lending platform, and also more known payment fintechs like PayPal. You have Apple Pay, Google Wallet, and so forth and so on. And with open banking, banks are now opening their systems. They are building the APIs to participate in these ecosystems, to find really good partnerships to, in the end, to provide the end customers better services. And as McKinsey puts it, APIs are the connective tissue in today's ecosystems. That really means the fintechs have the APIs, they can collaborate with the banks, build on the banks' platforms, and so forth. And for companies who really know how to implement them, they can cut costs, improve efficiency, and help the bottom line. But it's even more than that. So it's the APIs can even help to innovate, to growth, to find new market. And this is about the digital economy. And this is a little bit abstract. So I'd like to make a small example. It's the in-car delivery. So for instance, 1 month ago, we were invited by Daimler to Stuttgart to exchange ideas about API product management. And there they showed us this really nice use case. So imagine you are at the workplace, and of course you got an email or an SMS that your package that should be delivered today at your home was not delivered because you were at the workplace. You weren't at home, and the delivery man, he just rang the bell, but nobody opened the door. So he just took the package with him and left you a message like, yeah, I will come back tomorrow at the same time. And of course, you are at the same time again at the workplace and can't pick up the package. So this is a bad situation, but let's imagine that the delivery company provides some kind of a service that you as a customer can provide your car information, like a photograph, how your car looks like, the location of the cars, and even provide limited access to the trunk of the car to this delivery company. Then the delivery man, instead of getting the address of your home, he will get the address, or rather the location of your car. Will find it, drive to the car, and when he is close to the car, he gets the option to unlock the trunk of the car and then put the package into the car safely and then return back. And in the meanwhile, you as a customer, you get automatically notified that your package was delivered into your car, and you are happy because now after you finished your day work, you can go back to your car, pick up the package, and then drive home safely. And this is a really nice example of two companies like Daimler and DHL. DHL is a large delivery company. They use APIs to unlock in a secure way the trunk of the car and to put the package into the car. And it's really about they are building the ecosystem around this customer journey of receiving the package. And this is a really nice example of how APIs are used between two companies to really create kind of a win-win-win situation. For instance, the delivery man, he doesn't have to return with the package undelivered and just return the next day again to a closed door. I mean, for this company, I mean, it means they lose money because the driver has to drive at least two times to the client. The client gets the package finally, and also the car manufacturer in this case, it's Daimler. They can provide a really nice service to the end customer, but they even can charge the delivery company some money for this kind of service. And this, you can really see it as a new kind of a business model. I mean, Daimler, they can really grow into this delivery package business. And yeah, this is really this kind of digital economy the people are striving for the companies rather. You should look outside the company, but don't forget to also look inside the company, because even in large enterprises, you have also a huge ecosystem within. And instead of just collaborating between two companies, you can imagine that two departments of your enterprise can collaborate to create or innovate new services for your end customers. And there's a really nice and famous memo from Jeff Bezos. He's the founder and CEO of Amazon in 2002. This is a pretty old memo. It's even before Facebook was even founded, so it's pretty old. But what he said or told to all the teams in Amazon is that they have to expose the data and functionality through interfaces, or rather APIs, and they are only allowed to communicate with other teams through these interfaces. And if they don't follow this rule, they will just get fired. So it was really a severe thing. And he took it really serious. And now you can see Amazon is pretty successful. They have tons of APIs, well connected within Amazon, and they are really strong in innovation and being today really strong platform for a huge ecosystem. Yeah, we talked a lot about why APIs without explaining why APIs, and this is the second thing that we want to bring you more closer. What are actually APIs? So APIs, it's a piece of software. It's really a small thing. So if you talk to engineers who are building those APIs or developing those APIs, so usually it's not a big challenge. So it's not about algorithms, not about complex software engineering skills. So it's really simple things. But it should be the right thing and not just done right efficiently. And in this example, I will start from the left. So you can imagine that a person, he has a tablet, he wants to book a holiday and found one on a holiday booking page, a nice island, and he wants to buy. So he clicks on the buy button, and the application in the background on the tablet, he sends requests to the API, to the booking API, where the request gets analyzed and checked according to security. So is the application, for instance, allowed to make a booking in the name of the end customer? Some small value transformation, and then the API sends the final request to the booking application, where the booking is stored, gets flagged and stored into a database. And then in the best case, the application will provide a response like everything was okay, the booking was confirmed, or maybe there was an error, it's not confirmed. We send this response to the API will transform it back to a format that can be understood by the tablet, and maybe even charge the application owner of the booking page with some money because of the booking service, and then provides back the response to the tablet that everything worked fine. This is actually what an API does, nothing more, nothing less. So it's pretty simple, but this is just a technical view. And if you just think about APIs in this way, you will realize, or you will find yourself with hundreds of APIs, but no consumer and no success. And we were in this situation, but then found why we have to just rethink what APIs actually is. And it's actually a paradigm shift from API to VPI, and VPI stands for Value Proposition Interface. And we now explain, okay, what this actually means. And for this, we use the example from Nintendo. So on the left, I hope you know this game, Super Mario. So Super Mario is your prospect customer, pretty small. And you as a company, you provide a really nice product, the Fire Flower. And when Super Mario eats a fire flower, he gets new capabilities like shooting fireballs to fight enemies. And the value proposition is really like you as a company, you don't sell the flower, but you sell Super Mario becoming an awesome Super Mario who gets the job done, which means killing enemies and save the princess in the end. So in the end, it's really you sell the value proposition and not the solution itself. So where is the API, you may ask? So it's not the equal sign, it's actually the controller, because you need an interface to this value proposition. The controller controls this value proposition. So in this case, it's the right button to shoot these fireballs. And this is actually what the API is, or rather a value proposition interface. And you have to think about APIs in this way. So this was a rather abstract example. What we did, we created an API product, Identity, and in the following, I will show this concept of value proposition with this real-life example. So Identity, that's an API product, and it's based on custom info that Swisscom has in their customer relationship management system. And which means, I mean, Swisscom is the major telco company in Switzerland. It has maybe 70% or approximately 70% market share, 60. And 60%, sorry, Andrea, 6% market share, which means that they know or have customer information of 60% of the population. And of course, we built the customers API to provide information about the customer. But what is the value proposition of this, or are companies interested on who is the customer of Swisscom? It's not really a value proposition, it's just an API, but if you don't know what the problem is, you don't know for what problem this can be a solution, right? So what we started was really talking to customers, having workshops, and really asking, okay, what is actually the jobs that those companies have to get done? And one of those things was we found insurance companies who create platforms where users can register to get more information about insurance services. And what they had as a problem was really they had really a low conversion rate of the users, because their registration process was pretty complex. It means they sent you an SMS with a code to verify that your provided telephone number is really yours, and they ask for your home address, and they even send a letter with a code via post to your home address, which yeah, it's first it's cost, it's a stamp, plus the customer has to sign it, so it's an additional charge from the post, and it takes days to get this letter, and then the customer has to read the code, go back to the website, enter the code into the website to finally finish the registration. That was the process of those insurance companies, but what they actually wanted to do was really to verify the information of those prospect customers. And what we provide as a value proposition was really a service to verify those identities of a person. So not even talking about Swisscom customers, but really about people here in Switzerland. And that's what we provide, and that what made this API really successful. So it was not the customers API who got the success. It was something who really provided the value to the end customer with the value proposition. And this is a good example of how to think about APIs in terms of value proposition interfaces. And ultimately, it's really the API is about interface to value proposition and not to the application, especially if you're talking about products and customer value. Now I would like to talk about two types of of APIs. But before that, we have to clarify some terminologies, because it's what I found is it's really confusing. Those terms like what is actually digitalization, digital transformation, is it the same as digitization? So I think there are no clear definitions, but it's important to understand the two types of APIs, what those terms actually means. So digitization is really a basic thing. It just means that you create a digital representation of an analog or physical object and store it on the computer. For instance, you have a contract, an insurance contract on the paper, and you make a photograph of your smartphone of the contract and store it somewhere on a hard disk. So it's digitalized. And maybe you even can extract the text of the contract to get text. And this is what we call a digitization. Digitalization is another thing. It's really about companies having business processes which are mostly manual, and you try to optimize them, make them more efficient, to simplify them, use some technology like API, new services, and so on, to mostly make the process faster and save money, and also manual labor, of course. That's the wrong way. And the last thing is digital transformation. This is the example that we saw earlier with Daimler and DHL. With the in-car delivery, it's really about creating API products to really create new business models, conquer new markets, and grow. And there you can really earn money. So it's not only about saving money, like in digitalization, but really create new revenues for your companies. And this is what digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation is all about. So coming back to the two types of APIs, or two breeds, we found an analogy of Peter Drucker. He's an economist, I think in the 50s or 60s, pretty famous. And he did a lot of research of organizational changes, and developed, for instance, the paradigm of change model. And to explain the two breeds of APIs, we will now give it a look about the paradigm of change. So on the left side, you have for a company the operations. So it's really what the companies is today, what they are doing today. On the bottom you have the strategy. Usually there's the management to formulate the strategy, what should be done, and on the top right you have the tactics or what will be done. So mostly driven by API product manager. So I think most of the audience can resonate with the tactics. You define what product features will be created, what new services, new value you will create or provide to the customer. And the left side is more about critical thinking, so it's really about solving the problems. The right side is about design thinking, creative thinking to really try to innovate and find new business value. And that means on the left side, where strategy and operations overlaps, it's about the digitalization. That means business processes get improved to save money, and typically operations follows in that sense strategy. It's also easy to measure those efficiency gains through KPIs. On the right side, on the overlap, there you have digital transformation. It's creating or is about creating new business models, API products to also to support the strategy with new products, but also to change the strategy. Because sometimes you find new opportunities as product managers for the company to create new business value. Like for instance, in our case in Swisscom, we've identified the API product identity, which is not the core business of Swisscom, but it's really became really a huge asset. And also, as Gardner states, the top right is really, let's say, for us the important one, the API products, and that's really where the API products strive versus the API solutions. And as Gardner says, treating APIs as products increases the chances for digital business success, and that's what we all strive for. Yeah, so we heard about why are APIs important. It's about the digital economy and what APIs are about. The two types of APIs, like API products, API solutions, the value proposition interface. And now we come to product design, product strategy, and product execution. And what you see here is somehow a guide of the most valuable design. So it's not something that we invented, but it's out there. So good product, what does it need to be? So it needs to be desirable. That means there is a customer who really wants it. And it should be viable. That means the customer should want it, but we should also create revenue out of it and not just lose money. And then it should be also feasible. That means we should be able to implement that. And where those three forces overlap, this is the area where really great products come out. And this is really the guide of our methodology and how we set up everything. So now we are talking about the third thing you should know about as product leader, and that's how to do API product design. And yeah, let's talk about customer and really take their perspective and be customer centric and think about what means actually desirability. What many companies start, I mean, many companies see, okay, we need APIs to participate in this digital economy, in these ecosystems. So let's take our data, let's take our application and just build APIs. What then usually happens is that it just passes all the needs and all the problems of customers. And you end up with just building APIs, exposing your stuff, but you find out that nobody actually cares and you didn't even find a problem worth solving. What you need to do is really taking a customer-centric approach. You have to think on the right side about the customer. What is actually the jobs that the customer wants to get done? What is his processes? And then on the bottom, what are the pains? What hinders the customer to get his job done or improve his process? And maybe even gains to even improve how we can do the job better. And then find something in between to create your product. And that means from your data sources and applications, you define pain relievers. For instance, in the later case with identity, we had the data source about customers, and one pain reliever was, for instance, the identity verification service. That's the value proposition. And on the top of that, you build the API, or rather the VPI. That's the interface how the customer can access and use your value proposition. And this is derived from Mark Osterwalder. Maybe you know the value proposition canvas. This is a small adaptation for the value proposition interface canvas. Osterwalder also created this business model canvas. So it's, I think you all know it. And this is how you should approach this value proposition interface canvas. So you start with a customer. First, write down what's actually the job to get done. In the case of identity, it was verifying the identity of the prospect customers, and then the pains. So in this case, they even send a letter home to the customer to check if the living address is correct. And that's also really pain because the result was really a poor conversion rate and high costs. Then you start on your side with what you have, the assets in your company, and formulate pain relievers, and on top the interface for your API. And this is how you design the product. Yeah. And now I give over to Andrea.
Once you define and hopefully intercept the needs and the pain point of a customer, now it's time to put everything in a design map and put everything in a compass. So we developed a tool that you can use as a compass for your API product. As we said, the first step is identify the customers, the customer needs, the pain points, and at the end, the value proposition that your API product will provide to them. And based on this, and based on the work that you did in advance, especially in our experience, especially with the identity or other products like smart catalogs, we did it using a design thinking approach. And the very first step is to start to fill what we call the API product board, the compass. So value proposition, customer segment, and their needs will be filled, and will be included also an initial list of API features that we can use to relieve the pains of the customers. So as part of this process, we are filling all the cells here in this map, in this board. And the second step is to make a competitive analysis. Of course, this is something that every company does to be valuable in the market, to be relevant in their own market segment. And it's crucial and it's important to identify the competitors and evaluating their strategies, and also to evaluate their strengths and their weaknesses. Because one thing is to identify the customer needs, another thing is to evaluate if we are the right company, the right organization to try to relieve those pains. So this is the second step, and as you can see, our product board, the product board, starts to come alive. And the third step is the definition of the business context. Because it's true in a bigger organizations like the organizations like Swisscom or many other big companies that are in the situation where they have to protect themselves by the disruption generated by the startups that with an agile and very smart approach are able to disrupt their market. So first of all, identify the key players and the main strategy within the organization. And to do that, we use specifically a couple of tools. It's the innovation ambition matrix that will help you to identify what kind of customers you want to bring on the market, and also the stakeholders map that helps you to identify who are the stakeholders that you have to collaborate with or you have to communicate with in order to deliver a successful product. The first step is the definition of the business goals, and the business goals of your API product must take in consideration your company's overall strategy that usually is identified in the innovation ambition matrix. So with a fourth step here, we will start to arrive to somehow to the end of a tool that is only at its beginning, because in our cycle, as you will see later, we are going to refine and adjust all the aspects that we have in this tool. So we have to define the cost structure and revenue model. To define the API product cost structure, you have to take in consideration the delivery and operations of the specific API product. And to define the revenue model, you have the market out there is plenty of choices, and usually companies are using the standard revenue models that are using their that are mainly using their in their market or in their industry. And the main thing is that you have to take in consideration your companies and your product and your competitor strategies, and even more also your cost structure of your product. So with this last step, you fill the API product board, and only to give an example, only in 2013, John Musser, he defined in a blog post only few of the major monetization models for the APIs. I think that if we start a research now, we will discover more and more. This is only a few examples. So we are in a cycle, as we said, and we need a working ticket for the next step of the journey. And it's represented by the API product roadmap. In the API product roadmap, we simply map our product features that are previously prioritized based on the business goals to every single business goal. And we will go to define the API product roadmap. The elements of the roadmap are, of course, the release date and the release name, if you want, the list of the goals of the specific release, and the list of product features that we want to deliver in the specific release. And the important part here are the metrics, actionable items, so measurable objectives. That's the most important part. So how I can define if my release is a successful release or not. So it's a business goal centric roadmap, and of course, generally speaking, usually the startups or also today the bigger companies, whenever they start to disrupt their market or whatever other market, they are starting with an MVP, the minimum viable product, that is also more extended with a minimum viable, desirable, and feasible product. That is exactly what we are trying to achieve with our methodology. So this is a pretty famous example. So what is an MVP? Of course, it's not one wheel, and you cannot start with that to build a car, but the right approach is to start with something small, with something viable, with something that is already valuable for the customer, and then arrive to the car. So usually, also in our methodology, we take in consideration to start with an MVP, but even more, we want to start, since the API technology is powerful and will allow us to start with a prototype first approach. So with the prototype first approach, we can validate the MVP features even before we implement it. It means that we don't start with an MVP, but we start with a prototype. And to summarize this step of the viability of the product, we have the product roadmap as a working item for the next step. That is how to make the API product execution.
Right, thanks, Andrea. So we talked about the method to find the desirability, the API board to find the viability or define it. Now let's talk about the feasibility and how to execute this product strategy from the API product board. I think you are familiar with the lean startup idea for this build, measure, learn process. So it's really a great idea where you start with an idea, you build it to create a product, and then you hand it out to the customer. You measure how the customer reacts, you collect data, and from this data, how the customer uses this product, you learn and refine your idea. So this is a very interesting cycle invented by Eric Ries as lean startup method and applied by many startups nowadays, because it's kind of an agile approach, iterative approach to really find out what the customer actually means. It needs to be a fast cycle, because usually you shouldn't do or implement your ideas 2 years down in your cellar and then come out and then find out that all the customers don't actually have the problem that you thought they have and you tried to solve. So lean startup, this build, measure, learn cycle is the foundation of the for our lean API product development process. And if you know lean or running lean from Ash Moria, you know also this meta process about first trying to find the problem solution fit. That means what is actually the problem of the customer and find the right solution to for this problem. And then find the product market fit, which means you evolve the solution, use a revenue and cost structure, key metrics, sales channels, and try to give it a price and sell it on the market to really see how you have to shape your solution as a product to be successful on the market. And when you reach the market product fit, then you can go into the third stage, and that's scaling. Scale up to sell more. And from this, we developed this lean API development process. I mean, the APIs, you have to know that when you implement an API, hand it out to the customer who has to integrate it. Usually it's done by a project by the customer. And if they use an API, integrated it, you can't change the API interface anymore, because that's usually comes with huge costs on the side of your customer, and he rejects to adapt and will rather change to other API provider. So what you have to do first is really this prototype first approach. This is the left cycle. You recognize here also the build, measure, learn cycle. You first do the prototype based on your idea, you implement it, and prototype is really kind of a step or even a PowerPoint presentation about how the API would look like. Then you collect with the right stakeholders on the customer side feedback, like from the engineers, the architects, the business analysts, the product owners, and so on, to understand if you have or if your prototype solves the right things, and even more learn about the real problems. Because when we do this feedback collection together in workshops with the customers, we don't talk too much about the prototype, but usually 80% of the time we just talk about the problems and how the customer needs to solve their things or what jobs they need to get done. From this feedback collection, we improve our prototype, go back to the customer or rather to the early adopter until we found a stable version of the prototype. Then we go over to the middle stage. From this prototype, we define the backlog, which means the user stories. We plan them, we make effort estimations and so on, and give it over to the team who will implement those user stories and ultimately the API. So they build it, and then we include some measurements. We use typically log files to understand how the customer actually uses these APIs. Is it really in the sense that we anticipated or he told us, or maybe differently? For instance, in the case of identity, we analyzed the content of the identity verification of the personal data, and we found out that we, instead of having 60% of the market share, we could only deliver identity verification for 30% of the requests, which somehow points to a problem that we have. And we found out that we missed one backend to include in our service, and we integrated it. So now we have 70% as expected identity verification success rate. So this is the last cycle to measure this in production together with the customer to learn and improve the API product. Yeah, so these are the 5 things. So let's wrap up. So we said, okay, why do we talk about APIs? So you know now why. It's about digital economy. It's the APIs are actually the tissue to connect the companies, create this ecosystem. And you know also what APIs actually are technically, but also how to think about it in terms of value proposition interface, and where in the organization which type of API breed actually thrives. And in our case, usually we go for the API products. And we showed you how to do the API product design with the value proposition interface canvas to be customer-centric approach. We showed you the API product strategy, how to do that with the API board, which provides you a compass for your API product, and also how to execute this strategy using the lean startup approach, validate the things on the API product board, refine it, and then in the later stage, we implement it and try to get revenue. And maybe as a key takeaway, it's really about these 3 circles. It's about when you want to create API products, be successful in the digital economy, and be participate successfully in ecosystems and customer journeys. You need a product or API product that is desirable by the customer, which is viable. That means you can create a business out of it, and it's feasible, which means you can actually do it. And for each of these 3 things, we have a toolkit like the API or value proposition interface cannon for the desirability, the API product board to define your strategy and think about your viability, and the lean API product development process to execute it and ultimately to check if it's feasible to even do it. So these are the key takeaways. And yeah, as Raul already introduced us, next to me is Andrea Zulian, Senior Product Manager for APIs at Swisscom. And together with me, we worked in the same team, building this methodology and building successful API products, creating platforms for Swisscom, and really connecting Swisscom into this API and digital ecosystem. And if you're interested more in the methodology, want to go deeper how to do it, then you can go to www.apiproductmanagement.com. There you find our website about the book and also where you can download it. And yeah, so Raul, we finished, and it's now back to you.
Great. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Amancio. This was very interesting. We have quite a few questions that have come up, so I'd like to just go through them, and we have some time. So the process that you talked about, and very interesting shift from thinking about APIs as just application interfaces to thinking about the value proposition interfaces. But I guess the question that many people seem to have is the process that you described. How is it different from the normal product development process? What is something specific that we have to keep in mind when we are trying to enable these value propositions um, between two companies or between two different platforms?
Yeah, I can start, and Amancio will continue. I think that the most important aspect, the big difference is that we realized during our experience here in Swisscom is anyway that we realized that the business aspect, the business team must be closer to the technical team. So this is really a teamwork. And if you want to compete with the startups that are disrupting your market, you must imitate them, at least in terms of organization model. So the methodology and the approach works, in our opinion, if you execute it in a small team in an agile way.
Yeah, exactly. So you have really to I think most successful API products come out of these DevOps teams, which really merge business development operations of those API products. But I think also what's different to ordinary products, it's to understand those APIs, because technically it's so simple, and you have to think about an interface to a value proposition. And the product itself, usually it has a value proposition, but the APIs is actually the interface to the value proposition. And I think this shift in thinking, that's really the key trigger to create successful APIs. Otherwise, you just use API, the technology, to integrate two companies, exactly two companies, point-to-point solution, and you can't reproduce it, your solution, your API solution, as a product. And you can't actually scale. And I think most of the companies struggle exactly with this. They use APIs to integrate, make point-to-point solutions, but they expect to be participate in this digital ecosystem, digital economy, create new business models. But if you just do integration with APIs, you will never get there.
Okay. So yeah, talking about business models, what have you seen as popular business models around APIs? For example, in the case study that you had about Daimler and DHL, Daimler has exposed the car APIs so that a DHL guy can come and open the trunk and deposit the package in the trunk. So in this scenario, how is the APIs being monetized?
To be honest, I don't know what in this example, how they monetize it. I think it's running at the moment at the pilot, so they don't think about the pricing and the business model itself. But it's a classic transaction model. I mean, the delivery company earns money by delivering packages, and the end customer is happy when he gets the package. So that means Daimler could use as business model or pricing strategy a transaction fee on top of the fee of the delivery company. So that's maybe the approach that I see here most feasible.
And
Right.
If we can add something about that, I think that it explains very well how which is the direction now. Every company is part of an ecosystem. Daimler, in that case, is part of the ecosystem, digital ecosystem of the customer, and is at the same level of the DHL. It's this is really the shift. This is the change. The APIs will enable you as a player in the digital ecosystem, not as the star of the ecosystem itself. And the last thing about this use case, it's a disclaimer, please don't leave valuable objects in your car if it's not parked in Switzerland or in Germany.
Yeah, yeah. So, one interesting question here is when we typically think about APIs, we think about exposing a set of functionality for other developers to integrate, to take advantage of. You've created a very interesting model about changing our mindset from APIs to VPIs. So, where does the developer how do we take the developers into account in this situation?
So I talked about the lean API development process, and there in the prototype first, so in the left cycle, there we take the developer into account. So we do a workshop with developers from the customer side, but also the business who can really make those decisions. And I think it's really important to include developers there because usually they have a process in mind or a way how to do things, and it's really a valuable feedback. So usually it's a kind of he just wants to do the same thing as before, but with new technology. For instance, we had one really nice workshop where he told he wants an API to get the list of all assets that they have with Swisscom. And you can imagine it's kind of a request response, like several gigabytes of data that will be transmitted. And there's really a good chance to use, for instance, the 5 whys to really ask why do you need this huge amount of data of everything. And then, for instance, in this case, it turned out that they just rebuilt the same infrastructure as Swisscom because they had issue with scalability. And this kind of an insight for us that we should think about stability of our system and improve that, and not just ask what the developer wants, like faster horses, but understands why he actually asked for it and fix this.
Yes, and very often we figure out that the developer is not the customer, or is not the player who will decide what to do and how to do it. So first of all, in our approach is we take care about the business, so we want to be sure that our value proposition is good for the customer, and then we address all the design and usability concepts and processes to deliver APIs that are usable, intuitive, and so on and so on.
Okay, great. Yeah, that makes sense. And then I guess one last question here is, what is one of the biggest challenges with respect to managing APIs as a product, and what are the risks or what are the traps to avoid?
Okay. First of all, to manage APIs as products, as I said before, it's crucial that technical people work together with the business, or if you want, that the technical people is aware about the business. It will drive to better reaction with the customer, a better reaction in general. Developers and technical people will do the right thing if they are aware about the business concepts behind the product. This is one thing, so organizational aspect. And the other one is don't treat APIs, I guess. Amancio is close to tell it. Don't treat APIs as interfaces to systems or backend systems, but treat APIs as interfaces to value.
Maybe also I think it's usually mostly a luxury problem. It's about scalability. We saw many companies struggling with APIs and scalability, so they make good API solutions, they make integrations, and they usually end up with 200 APIs, and they don't even know they have to create new APIs, but even maintain those old ones. And the more you get those, and the less you can reuse them for the customers, the more work you have, and the less money you actually get. I think the conclusion is really focus on really core APIs to really make them products to be reused by other customers, rather than jumping from solution to solution to just create the interconnection or integration between two specific companies for one use case.
Great. I really like what you said about not thinking about APIs as interfaces to systems, but really thinking about them as interfaces to value. That's very powerful. We're just gonna quickly wrap up here. Thanks a lot, Andrea and Amancio. Really appreciate your insights and sharing your experience, and very informative presentation. We want to announce the lucky winner of this book, API Product Management by Andrea and Amancio. Anish Khadgi. Anish, you're the lucky winner, and the team will reach out to you to get you a copy of this book. And as I understand it, Amancio and Andrea have been very kind that they are going to give you 2 copies. So one for yourself and one for anyone else that you'd like to pass on to. So thank you for that. So Anish, congratulations, and the team will reach out to you to share information about how you can get a copy of the book. Some upcoming events, you can look at the events section on the website and keep abreast of all the different events, webinars, seminars that happen on a regular basis. The next seminar that's coming up in Bangalore on 19th of May, we are very proud to host Abhilash Verma as a keynote speaker. Abhilash is a VP of Product Management at Citrix, and he'll be speaking at the event on mid-career transitions in Bangalore on 19th May. And another seminar on mid-career transitions in Pune on 26th May. Again, pleasure to host Tarun Sharma. Tarun is the CEO of BMC Software India, and very great leader to listen to hear from, and look forward to that. If you would like to have your own career questions answered, you can have a 30-minute coaching session with any of our faculty members. You can schedule a time slot by using this link here. We'll get this link out to you so you can access it after this webinar is over. With that, we are going to wrap this up. Once again, Amancio and Andrea, thank you very much for being here, and all of our attendees as well. Thanks for taking the time to join this webinar. We'll share information about the next webinar. We're working on some very exciting speakers and topics, so we'll get that information out through our regular newsletter and through our social media channels. So once again, thank you very much, and good day and good night.